Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm going to be showing you how to use the select for Angular material, and it looks something like this. We're going to be looking at a bunch of options you can do with it though, so let's get started. Alright, so we're going to get this first example working on our site. Just a blank site I have. So inside of my app component HTML, I'm going to paste that first example and format it. And basically what it does is it defines a form field. The mat select must be inside of a form field, otherwise it'll freak out and throw an error. And then it has a placeholder of favorite food, and that's just the text that goes right here at the top of it. And then there's an option for each food of foods, which we don't have this foods array yet, so let's put that into our TypeScript file. So I'm going to copy that and then place it in my own TypeScript file. And as you can see, foods is just a array of objects which have values and view values. So that's a pretty common thing, to have the value separate from the display value. So each one of the options displays the view value, and then the value is tied to just the regular value. And that's because oftentimes your view value will have spaces and nice things for users to look at that we don't necessarily want to store in the back end or store in our model. So it's common to separate those. So I'm going to save that and then head over to the app module file and make sure we have the browser animations module imported, as well as we need to import the mat select module. And we'll see if we can get away with that. We probably have to import something else. So let's head over to the app and see what errors we have. Nope, that looks like that was the only thing. There we go. So now it's loading our items here, and then we can select them, so that works fine. So we weren't doing anything with the selection, but this next example shows us how we can bind the selection to a variable in the TypeScript. So I'm going to copy that binding and place it in our mat select. So that goes right here. In the mat select directive, we're binding the value of the mat select to selected, which is going to be a variable in our TypeScript. And initially they set it equal to option 2. So that'll be, well, we have a different model, so we're going to set ours equal to pizza 1, just to show that the model will initialize the mat select. So there we go, it's initialized to pizza despite being refreshed. And then when we change it, or actually we should bind a variable to selected, so we can see that the value is really changing, the selected value that we're binding to. So down here, I'm just going to put selected, and I'll put that outside because it's not really part of the form. Alright, so it starts out as pizza 1, and then we change it to steak, and then it changes the value to steak 0. So again, that's binding to the value here, because we said the option's value is food.value as opposed to the view value. And so every time that changes, that's synchronized with this selected variable in the TypeScript. Alright, let's look at the next thing that we can do. So we can also do classic things like error messages, hint text, prefix and suffix. I've covered that in the form field video, So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, you can check that out. Alright, so moving on to disabling the select, that's pretty simple. All you have to do is inside of the mat select, you can just give it the disabled attribute, and you can bind that to a variable if you'd like. So I'm going to bind the disabled attribute of the mat option to food.disabled, and then inside of the TypeScript, I'm going to set one of these to have a disabled value to be true. So disabled is true. And then the other two don't have the disabled variable, and that's fine. That just means that when this is looking for the food.disabled, it will evaluate that as false, and so it won't be disabled. Alright, so going back to our example, the first one should be unselectable. There it is, steak is unselectable. Second one is still selectable. Third one is still selectable. So that's disabling. We can also disable the entire select by typing disabled here. And again, this could be bound to a variable on the TypeScript, but we're not going to do that. So here you can see that we can't change it because it's disabled now. Alright, I'm going to remove that. And we're going to check out what else we can do. The next thing is creating groups. This is a pretty cool feature, I gotta say. It makes it look really nice. You can group things like they're doing water, they're doing Pokemon. So the way that works is instead of just defining all of your mat options directly under the mat select, you provide a mat option group and you give it a label. So I'm just going to hard code that in mine. So I'm going to copy this, and then at the top I'm going to make a mat option group, which I'm going to give it a label that just says hard coded, and remove these brackets because it's not a variable on the scope. And we don't need this ng4. And then inside of here we can just have another mat option. And then this again doesn't need really anything inside of here except for some hard-coded values. And I'll put another one for good measure. Alright, so now we have our two hard-coded options within a hard-coded group. And then we should see those just inside of the hard-coded group up here, and yep, we do. So there's the group hard-coded, and then you can select both of these and it will adjust the value, and then the rest of these aren't really part of a group, they're just on the root level. Alright, next thing we can do is multiple selection. This one's really easy. All we gotta do is add multiple to the mat select as an attribute, and then it will work. Oh, except that it says value must be an array in multiple selection mode, which makes sense. So we're still binding to selected here, which is just a single value right now, but inside of our app component TS, I'm going to change the selected to instead be an array, and that should just store all the values. So at first pizza 1 should still be selected, and it is. And then we can select hard-coded, and then these options are now a part of an array as opposed to just being a single value. Yeah, so that's multiple selection. Pretty surprisingly easy, actually. Alright, next up we can have what's called a mat select trigger, which is when you select stuff, you can have special text here, which says something smart about what you've selected. And the way that you do that is you implement this mat select trigger tag. So we're going to copy that and get it working with our example. I'm going to put it up here. The order doesn't really matter of these things, by the way. Ours is just going to say something simple, like if the selected length is greater than 2, then it's going to say more than 2, or not more than 2. Alright, so that will override what our text says. So here, instead of saying pizza 1 or pizza, it says not more than 2. And then as we add these things, we'll see that it changes eventually to more than 2. So again, that just overrides the display value. But you can do like a hybrid, like it could say pizza and then parentheses more than 2, which is kind of what they were doing in their example. It says mushroom and then plus one other, but ours just overrides it. So you can have that do whatever you want. Alright, we're almost done here. Next thing you can do is disable the ripple, because right now if you click on stuff, it has a ripple effect. But if you don't want that, then you can just go inside the code and type disable ripple, place that as an attribute in the mat select. Alright, and that'll do just what it says. It doesn't ripple anymore. Okay, last thing that we can do is adding custom styles. This one I've actually already covered in my custom theming tutorial. So be sure to check that out if you're interested. Basically, you can style whatever element you want using whatever theme you want. So it's pretty useful stuff. Alright, and that's everything for this tutorial, you guys. Let me know if you guys like this video, and be sure to subscribe for more videos like this.